Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Dennis. Today we're going to talk about the Cooler Master Hyper 212 RGB Black Edition CPU cooler. So it's a pretty cool looking cooler. It's pretty big, but not too big. We're going to try and put it into a small form factor computer. I think it'll work. We'll find out. First, let's get it out of the box, see what it looks like. If you're new here, hit that subscribe. Think about hitting that like later on in the video if you like it. If not, you know what to do. Hit that bell for future notifications. And don't forget to check out those affiliate links. And of course, donations are always welcome, but not required. Here we go. Okay, so before we get out of the box, this is the computer it's going to go into. It's pretty small, not terribly small, but it's pretty tiny. So this is going to go in there. You might be surprised. Okay, so just in case anybody's wondering, we'll find out when we get into the box whether it has its own controller or not. But it works with Aura Sync, ASRock's version of the software, along with Gigabyte, MSI, and yeah, so it should work with pretty much any manufacturer's motherboard as long as it has RGB, and there's RGB on the motherboard itself, so you can control it. Usually there's a controller in here, but we'll find out if there is or not. So one of the things that's typical with Cooler Master is it usually has their box. And this is going to be all your hardware, all your screws, everything you're going to need to install it is going to be on the top here. So we'll get that and have a look at it here in a minute. But let's get the cooler itself out and see what it looks like. It's a big old case. Yep, we don't need that anymore. And of course it comes with silicate. Don't need that. Comes with your instruction manual, warranty, all that kind of good stuff. So if you don't know how to put it together, in this video, you don't like it, don't think it works, well, you can go ahead and use that. But there's our actual cooler. So it doesn't look quite as big once you get it out of the box. So a lot of packaging. That's all there is to it. So having a first look at it as well, other than the size. Okay, so that's your RGB. That'll go on your motherboard. And of course your 4-pin for your CPU fan. So moving on, let's have a little bit more look at what hardware comes with it. Okay, so we got all the parts out. And what's one thing I want to point out right off the bat is it does come with the RGB controller, okay, and I'll explain this all later. So if you don't have a motherboard with RGB, this will allow you to still use the RGB on this cooler. Okay, it's important to know. Comes with your backplate, comes with the So whether you're doing an AMD or Intel install, something that's important to know is you're going to use these regardless of which one you use. And then Intel, AMD. You'll use that either with these or with these, depending on which kind of install you're going to do. You get your brackets here, some of which you will use, some of which you won't, depending on whether you're doing AMD or Intel, and or other parts that are going to go on. And I'll show you all that. Don't worry about how they all go together yet. I'm going to do the install step by step, show you how everything works, and then we'll light it up, and then of course we'll test it and see what we get for temperatures. So stay tuned. Okay, so first off, we'll lay out all our parts. This is a fan splitter. I don't know why I was talking about that before, but anyway, fan splitter, connect your fan. That allows you to connect your controller for your RGB if you plan to use that. I'm not going to do that because I don't need it. I'm going to install to an AM4 motherboard that has an RGB connector on the motherboard, so I'm not going to need it. If you need to know how to do that, you can look back on one of my previous videos that's RGB, and one of those is in there, and I've shown how to use it. So, not this time. This time, if you want to do an Intel install, these are your parts, okay? And for AM4, these are your parts. So you have these two brackets, okay? You can see they're straight. Okay, AM4 brackets are always going to be usually straight. You're going to use this regardless of whether you're doing an Intel build or not. You're going to use these. You're going to use these. That's the only thing that you share. So this shares with an Intel build or AM4. Doesn't matter which one you're doing, just so you know which parts are interchangeable. This is all in the instructions if you get stumped or you're not sure which way to go. So we're going to start putting it together. First thing you're going to do is take your backplate. Okay, your backplate here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you're doing an AM4 build, okay, install, this is going to be facing going that way against your motherboard. So if you had the pins already on here, it would go in there, so that flat surface goes in, and this is what is on the back. So the first thing you're going to do is locate which one's your AM4. Okay, so for your AMD computer, it's going to go, you got a little slot here, and your little metal pins are just going to set inside. Okay, don't worry about where they go right now. You can adjust that afterward. Then you're going to take your little clip. Okay, these little clips here, the flat ones, and that's going to go on top. So we're just going to put that over here. Now be careful because they are plastic and you do not want to break them. All right. So before I push it on, I want to show you how this is. There's things in here. So when you turn this over, okay, see how that little groove is there? So you want to make sure you get that groove on the side. So then it's going to push down. And like I say, you can adjust this one way or the other depending on how you need it afterward. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that to all 4 of these spots, and then we'll continue. So once you have all 4 of them on, it'll look like that. Okay, so like I say, that's going to go in. This is your motherboard. You're going to put it through the holes in the back of the motherboard. Okay, we're just prepping it before we actually go ahead and get to the motherboard. So just to show you what it's going to look like, all that kind of good stuff. So that part's done. We know we're going to need these. These are just to tighten once we have everything in place. So we'll show you that after. You're going to need your brackets, which are going to have to go out in the bottom of your cooler. So we'll do that next as well. So just so you don't have to go hunting through one of my previous videos, but I'll give you a quick lowdown on how the RGB controller works. Okay, start off with this little piece here. All right. On this side, you're going to have 4 little places, 4 little holes. And it doesn't matter which way they go in. You're just going to line them up and push it in. And when you're done, it'll look just like that. Now, that's where you would hook in the RGB. Okay. Now, before you do that, there's an arrow right here. Okay, so there's an arrow here, and on here there's another arrow. So you want to make sure you line those arrows up. And once you've got in there, it'll go together like that. On the other end, you've got a little connector here, and you've got this little cable, and it only goes in one way. There's a little divot there. So line it up. Okay, so line it up, push it in. Don't worry about it if it takes you a couple seconds to get it right. Now, unfortunately, they still use Molex. So you're going to have a Molex connector to power this if you're not plugging directly into an RGB header. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to need that. I'm not going to use it. So I'm just going to unplug this, and we're going to put this away for now. So one more thing I want to point out is you have 4 big screws here and you get 2 little tiny ones. These are the screws that you're going to need to put in these brackets, okay? These here you don't need when you're doing an AM4 motherboard install of your cooler, so don't worry about them. So we're going to have a look at the cooler, show you how the brackets go on, and then we're going to open up the case, go to the back of the motherboard, and do the install. Okay, so having a look at the fan, all right, your fan is held on by these little brackets. So that's what these extra brackets over here are. So if you wanted to add a second fan, you could do that. Okay, so getting back to this one, to take your fan off, you just have to lift on it a little bit, and then it just comes off. Okay, it's on there pretty loosely, and that's how it would look if you're putting on another fan. And then you've got these little, well, rubber pieces. Basically, they're for dampening and for sound absorption. You're going to have them in each corner. So if you put a second fan on, don't forget to put those on. So now what we're left with is our fins. You can see your heat pipes running through. Of course, you got your cooler master. And on the bottom. Now, on the bottom, okay, very clearly says, please peel off label before you use it. What we're going to do right now is put our brackets on. So before I mount this, I wanted to show you one more. Look in here, and you'll see that this is notched a little bit. So that little notch is going to fit right in here. So make sure you put the notch so it fits in there. Screw it from the bottom. All right, just like that. And then turn it around and make sure you do the exact same thing on this side. All right, so find that little notch. Make sure it's lining up here. You do that, when you go to put it back in, everything is going to line up perfectly. Okay, so here's your bracket. It's on. Okay, that's what it's going to look like on one side. Okay, and I didn't take this off because I'm trying to do it without it. I just put the little screw in here. And that fastens on. Now you will see it does come up a little bit on the inside. That's fine. That's just the way it's designed. So then you're just going to flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side. Alright, just like that. Okay, so take the bracket, you get the little lip, goes underneath. Okay, you want to line that up with the hole. You see how that's lined up? And you're just going to hold it in place, drop your screw in here, and tighten it. Okay, so screw in here, tighten it down. Once it goes nice and tight, that's it. And now you're ready to have it. It's all ready for you. So you will have to take that off, like I said. Okay, you pull your fan back on, but right now we got it all ready so we can put it on once we have all the rest of it done. So let's get the system open and continue on. So something I want to point out that I just noticed is you can see here how there's a little crack. Not much, and it's really not going to, it shouldn't take away from your thermals too much. Alright, minor imperfection. It'll still work just fine, so don't worry about that if that happens. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is unscrew the 4 screws in here, and what you're going to notice is on the back, once that's loose, this little plate here, it's going to come off. Okay, you're not going to need that again right now, unless you plan to reuse the stock cooler. So let's go back to the other side here. Okay, so just in case you're wondering, these 4 screws that I just released, it's being held on basically by the thermal paste. So when you take it off, just give it a bit of a twist. So this is off. Now you're just going to pull your little CPU fan off the CPU fan connector. And now we're going to remove it. Okay, so our stock cooler is off. Our back plate is off. And now we're ready to put in our new backplate. So our new backplate here, I'll just turn this around so you can see, is going to go up and fit in these holes. Okay, if it doesn't fit, readjust your the way you've got them on there, but it should go in pretty simple like that. Turn it back around, and now you're going to use these. Okay, and you're just going to put them on here, screw them in, and that'll start to hold it in place. Now remember, one thing you're going to have to do, you're going to have to remove what thermal paste is still on there, clean it off, reapply new thermal paste before you put this cooler on. Okay, so I've got that one on, and I've got this one on, just holding it in place. I'm going to put the other two on, and then we're going to mount our cooler after I clean and remove the thermal paste. So one thing you might want to do, well, I suggest you do, take your little thread. Now this thread is meant to tighten those down. So just put your screw on here. Okay, so put that on there, tighten it on, do the same thing on this one, and rinse and repeat. So what I've got this time is I'm going to use Noctu NTH1. Okay, Noctu NTH1. It's non-conductive, and I'm going to use that. It's a much better thermal compound, and it'll work a lot better. Okay, so to remove the thermal paste, I'm going to be using rubbing alcohol compound, 95% ethanol, and just white paper towel. So I'm just going to put a little bit on here. Do it a couple of times just to make sure I got enough. Careful, don't spill any on the inside of your motherboard, of course. And then you're just going to go down, and I mean, I got to say, this one's going to be pretty easy to clean because there's basically nothing there. That's crazy. I mean, it is there, but it's like the thermal grease that I used was terrible. So before you mount the fan, now you want to make sure you take this off. Okay, so when you put your thermal paste on, everything is going to be good. You're going to fit it down. Okay, so you can just set it on the other end, put your thermal paste on, and you're good to go. Now there's a whole bunch of different rules of thumb on how to put your thermal paste on. P shape is one, grain of rice is another, the X. So when you put it on, just make sure you don't put too much. And I'm just going to do the little grain of rice. And that's plenty. That should be just more than I need. Alright, so now take your cooler, make sure it says Cooler Master, okay, line it up. And you're going to line it up with the your 4 threads and make sure it goes in right. And then it's just a matter of tightening that down. And I want to show you something here. So, if you'll notice, it just clears the case. And because this case has a little bit of a bulge, it's going to go on there just perfectly. So, will it go in a Versa H15 case? Yes, it will. So I'm going to tighten those 4 screws down. And then we're going to plug into our RGB. Plug into our CPU fan. I'll show you where those go. And then we're going to start it up and have a look at it. Okay, so a couple of things you can do before you put it on. You can put your fan back on and then plug everything in. I chose to do it slightly differently because being a small form factor mini ITX motherboard, it's really hard to see everything if I put the fan on. So after I got everything all fastened down with the cooler, I found my CPU fan, the header, and I plugged it in. And after I did that, I'll put my fan on, but before I do that, I have to locate on my motherboard where the RGB header is, and then I'm simply going to plug this one down there, and then I'll just snap my fan on here, and I'll show you that how that fan goes on afterward. Okay, so putting on your fan, I just locked the one on this side, but there's little grooves here. So once you got your fan, you can just push it, it'll just lock in place. So this is basically you're going to pull the air from here, push it out the back. This fan is going to exhaust it out the rear of the case. All right, so basically a push-pull configuration. Now I couldn't show you the RGB, so what I'm going to show you is for this particular motherboard, I'll show you where it's at and how to know how to plug it in right. Okay, so on this motherboard you got RGB LED header, which is white, and you got the addressable RGB header. So we're using a RGB LED header. Now the thing to remember is there is a 5 volt. Usually starts on the left. So you plug it in with the arrow pointing this way on the left hand side, going across. Now consult your motherboard because yours could be different than mine. So at this point, if I've done everything right and everything's plugged in right, CPU fan is plugged into the CPU fan header. The RGB is plugged in the right spot. Sorry, this part here, okay, just to be clear, plugs into the CPU fan header on your motherboard. This plugs into the RGB header, like I just showed you, to make sure that will light up. So at this point, everything's done. I'm going to fire it up, and we'll have a look, see what it looks like, and we'll do some temperatures. Okay, so here we have our fan up and running. Over on this side here, you can see how you can change all your colors using the software that came with your motherboard. Like this is the ASRock motherboard. Right now it's got pink. You have to play with the colors a little bit. I made the mistake of changing these somehow, and so the color's a little bit off. Right now it's on breathing, and these are all your different settings. You can go static, have one solid color, okay, and you can make it more bright green, whatever you want to do, pink, or you can go to a darker purple, orange, and I'm not sure how you go get darker orange or not. There, I guess that's pretty good. Go here. Oh, it was better where it was at. Anyhow, you get the idea. And change it to whatever you want, and you're good to go. So we'll just go a couple more of these. So you have strobes. Okay, cycling. Just random, so it'll just change on its own. Oh, sorry, random. And wave. Not sure which one I like more, breathing or wave. That one gives you a little bit more of the what the orange can look like. So that is pretty much all there is to it. Okay, so you can see up here, this is where our temperatures are setting. Right now we've been setting at 24 degrees. And yeah, it's been running pretty good. It's completely quiet. It's made a huge difference in the noise factor of this small form factor PC. And yeah, so overall, great RGB colors, quiet performance. You can add a second fan if you'd like to, but you don't need to. But it does provide all the brackets, everything you're gonna need. So another great product from Cooler Master. All right, everybody, so temperatures are really low. So great fan, great temps. So hope you like this video. If you like it, hit that like. If you're new, think about subscribing. Think about donating. Not required, but always appreciated. And hit that bell for future notifications. If you don't like it, well, you know what to do. Don't forget that thumbs up if you do like it. If there's any questions or anything like that, let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm able to. Thanks for watching. I know it was kind of long and convoluted, but I think I gave you a lot of information that will prove useful. If you don't think so, let me know. Tell me what you think you were looking for that I could do better in the next video. Thank you. Take care.